City rail fans. You've tuned in to the Iron City Roundhouse Report, the podcast where we delve into the fascinating world of locomotives, rolling stock, and the rich history and current state of railroading. I'll be one of your hosts. My name's Brad Williamson, and our other host is my good friend Patrick Moore. And whether you're a seasoned model railroader, a history buff, or just someone who loves the sound of a passing train, you're in the right place. We're proudly affiliated with the ironcitynscale Facebook group, but don't let the name fool you. We cover all scales from Z to G and everything in between. We'll be exploring the vibrant railroading scene of western and central Pennsylvania, from the mighty steel giants of the past to the intricate layouts of today. Expect in-depth discussions, interviews with experts, and plenty of stories from the rails. So grab your favorite beverage, settle in, and enjoy the Roundhouse Report, a podcast of Iron City, by Iron City, and for Iron City. Hello, and welcome once again to another episode of the Iron City Roundhouse Report. Thank you for tuning in, and it is so great to have you here with us. Once again, we have Pat, my good friend Pat Moore, and me, Brad Williamson, here to spend a little bit of time with you guys. And we're once again very appreciative that you decided to spend a little bit of time of yours with us today. So, Pat, come on in, and let's get things going here.
Okay. Hey, Brad, tonight we have another Yardmasters, and this one's called the Think Tank. And what we did is we got the questions right off our Facebook page from our viewers and our listeners, and they asked the questions. So we handpicked those from folks that were asking a lot of good questions, and we hope to do this periodically where we get the members to ask the questions for us. And I think that's the best feedback we've seen so far. It allows us to have good interaction with the Facebook page and with the podcast. They're kind of bleeding into each other. And I think that's really going to work for us. And I think we have some really good answers. And like our motto of the Iron City, we had a lot of long answers for your short questions. So that's our motto, and we try to keep it going. But Brad, I want to talk to you a little bit about an observation I had, about our hobby and how we're doing. And
is this going to be like Random Thoughts by Patrick Moore?
Random Thoughts, yeah.
I love it. I can't wait to hear this.
So as we know, you and I never really get to talk. We talk shop a lot on our podcast, and we try to ask questions every day. But I think sometimes it's good just to look at each other and say, well, what do you think about the hobby? What are we doing with the hobby? Our own little projects or whatever. I think people want to hear stuff like that too. But I found myself I extended myself a little bit, worked a little bit more now that I'm retired. It's nice not to have to work every day, but I worked several days in a row with these, I've picked up, I think, 4 or 5 jobs, retirement jobs. And I found myself in the train room, very tired. The next thing I know, I'm in the train room for 5 hours, just watching trains go around. I didn't do any switching. I think I might have taken one train out, put another train on. I had that 2 main line on the panhandle. But I was just thinking, sometimes the hobby does something for you that you don't even realize. Sometimes, relaxation. It just relaxes you. And I don't think we talk about that enough, Brad, about why we actually do what we do. We enjoy trains. We'd like to go and meet people and do things. But sometimes, that lone wolf in the middle of the night or in the afternoon, whenever you guys are in your train rooms, sometimes it's just that rhythmic train running around and just kind of let you fade off a little bit. I wanted to hear what your thoughts were on that.
Oh, I could not agree more. It's one of the most therapeutic things I think a model railroader can do. There's many a days, I think back to how, for a school teacher like I am, and you're going to be soon, on a substitute basis anyway, back during the COVID years and coming out of the COVID years was just a crazy, walking around with your hair on fire, stressful time. And there was many a night when I needed to come home and just go decompress down in the train room. And it's kind of one of the things you said about just letting the trains run. I'm not doing any operations. I'm just start up a train and sit in the middle of the train room with either a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, maybe even a mug of beer, who knows, but you just sit there and enjoy watching your trains, running through the miniature world that you've created for them to run through. Yeah, it is definitely relaxing. The other thing too, when we were shut down during COVID, I know a lot of people felt really, really isolated during those times. And I was like, man, I'm down in the train room having a blast. then one then one day I came upstairs and my stepdaughter and wife were not nearly as happy as I was. Yeah, we understand you're having a good time down there, but what about us? So
Right.
we had to take a little drive out into the wilds of PA. But yeah, it is. That's what a hobby's supposed to do for you, really, to get you that relaxation time, just enjoying yourself. Our good buddy Dave Abeleys has one of the best quotes on this. I think you mentioned that you had gone how 6 or 7 days without a day off or something, and you finally felt weird to have a day where you didn't have to do anything. So you were away from your layout. But Dave said, your layout is like a faithful pet or faithful dog, whatever. You can be away from it for a while, and it's always there waiting for you when you're ready. And it's just a good feeling to have a hobby like that you don't have to feel pressure to do something with it every day, but when you're ready and when you need it, it's there.
And the funny part is, I did panic there right after the 5 hours, thinking, "Oh God, how much maintenance do I need to do on these locomotives?"
Yeah.
And track cleaning. I was like, "Oh, I've been out here for hours." You don't even think about it, but those are just some of the things, some of the observations I've had lately on the hobby. And I'm glad I have it. It really does help you sometimes just take it down a notch, turn that knob down, and it's kind of nice.
Yeah,
So
you definitely need to do that from time to time. So that's good thought there.
yeah. So are we ready for the Roundhouse Report?
Yeah, I think we are. Do you want to go ahead and lead off the the Roundhouse Report for this evening?
I'll give it a crack tonight. How about that? I'll go first this evening.
Okay, have at it.
Okay, so hey everybody, I don't think folks might not know that we have some different things that go on our page, on Iron City page. We have our Let's Talk Trains. It's about every other week during the fall and winter. We have our showcases. We try to do we have our cover photo contest that we do, and we try to do some clinics when we can. That's been something that we've been hit or miss with the clinics. And then we have our live events with the folks that want to do remote. We do some of that during the year. But what I want to talk about is we are about to kick off our Iron City fall schedule, which allows us to have our Let's Talk trains every other Thursday. And then we do coffee and trains probably once a month on Saturday mornings. And that's just a Zoom call that allows you to, talk to us and ask questions and everything. But the thing that really I enjoy, which is number one in my book, is the showcase. And we have Ryan Liam that's going to kick off the showcase with my favorite, Lehigh Valley. His is the Lehigh Valley and New Jersey lines from Benders Glen to West Jonesport, PA. And it's a 15:9 layout. I've seen it on some pictures here he shared with us. That's going to be a great event. And that all you have to do is go on our page because it's a Facebook Live event. And that will be I believe the fourth Thursday in September. So look for more information on that. It's in our events tab, and it will be September 25th at 8:30 p.m. Like I said, no links are needed. Just come onto our page, and he will be doing a live event, walking around his layout, showing you his trains running, maybe showing you how he's done some buildings or techniques and everything. It's a great event to have. If you miss it, don't worry. We save it for 30 days, so you can see it on another time. But it's a great time also to ask the showcase host like Ryan questions. There's a tab that you can go on and do the questions and ask them and talk to them. So, Brad, that's mine for the night, the showcase.
Yeah, that's definitely one to look forward to. I recall seeing a lot of I've seen Ryan's posts and remembered thinking that's a pretty cool layout. And also it drew my attention because, as you mentioned, I know you're a big fan of the Lehigh Valley. So that'll be a cool one to look forward to. And I can't recall, is it an N scale layout, Pat?
Yeah, it's an N-scale layout, and
Okay.
it's an operational layout. He's got the operational cards and everything, the waybills and stuff. So it's an operational layout, not just a hobby layout.
That's great. Yep, that'll be definitely one to look forward to. So everybody be sure to keep watching for further announcements on that. And as Pat said, it's in the events tab at Iron City. So that'll be a showcase, first showcase of the fall season coming up. So one thing that caught my eye this week, I believe it was as we are recording this just yesterday, Jimmy Brom, who always is sharing stuff with us about the East Broad Top Railroad, because I know Jimmy is a member of the Friends of the East Broad Top. He shared a YouTube video titled "A Promise Kept," honoring the Kowalczyk family at the East Broad Top Railroad. And for anybody out there who may not know the story, the East Broad Top, of course, is a narrow gauge railroad. It's in the southern part of our state, down near Mount Union. And it shut down, closed down operations in 1956. And it was purchased by the Kowalczyk Salvage Company, owned by its founder, Nick Kowalczyk. And of course, it's a salvage company. So he bought the property with the intent to scrap it. And thank goodness that didn't happen. When he went and visited the property, he instead became interested in preserving it, because it's a pretty rare bird among U.S. railroads. There aren't that many narrow gauge railroads left, and the East Broad Top isn't just the railroad. The shop buildings and everything are there just as they were back in 1956. Wow. So it is definitely worthy. It's worth honoring this man who, for years, from 1956 up until they sold it to the Friends of the East Broad Top just recently, within the last 4 or 5 years. Rather than scrapping that and getting his money out of it, he decided to have it operate as a tourist railroad, and it just kept that going and kept that heritage preserved for all those years. So just hats off to Mr. Kowalczyk for enabling that to get into the hands of the people now who are doing such a fantastic job of restoring so much of that to operational status that many of us never thought would ever see trains again. So that was the first one I wanted to share, Pat. And thanks to Jimmy for sharing that. I enjoyed watching that YouTube video on Mr. Kowalczyk and the entire Kowalczyk family. Really, it's a family deal there with their scrap business. And I'm sure it was a pretty big leap of faith for that company to say we're gonna operate this rather than just tearing up the track, scrapping the locomotives and everything else. So it's all still there, for future generations to enjoy and for us to still enjoy. So very, very important piece of history still alive there down in southern Pennsylvania.
Okay, Brad. With that, we're going to be back in just a second with our Iron City Yardmasters. We're calling this one the Think Tank. And I think these guys are going to give you guys a lot of the answers you're looking for this segment. So we'll be right back after this. Hi, and welcome back to the Roundhouse Report. So we got our Yardmasters tonight. I think this is the first ever model railroad think tank. So we're getting these guys together for some great discussion tonight. I'm going to pass it over to Brad, and he's going to introduce everyone.
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for joining us again for another episode. And with us tonight in the studio, the Roundhouse Report studio, are it's another set of 3 Yardmasters. We have with us tonight Phil Ellerbach of Philament Designs. If you want to get on the Iron City webpage and check out some of Phil's work, but you can also, Phil has his own webpage, which we'll let him introduce what that is here in just a few, but he has some really cool things that he's doing with model railroad electronics and with 3D printing. So he has become a very valuable and just a very interesting member of the Iron City N-scale community. Some doing some really cool things with aids in building T-track modules, some specialized sections that mate to Kato Unitrack using other companies' track, and also some new electronics projects for model railroading. So a lot of cool stuff Phil's doing. Then we also have from Iron City South, our good friend George Hall, who has actually been here basically from the beginning, really. We had a podcast a few weeks back that we called, it was some of our OGs, some of our original guys. George is also another one who has been here right from the beginning. George and I actually met before Iron City was even created. We met on the sales pages. We both frequent the Facebook marketplace selling sites for N-scale equipment. So that's how I met George. And then when we started Iron City, he joined us here, right? I think probably within the first 24 hours of its existence. So it's great to have George here from the South. It's South Carolina, I believe, right, George?
Yes, South Carolina.
Cheraw, South Carolina. Did I say that right?
Yes,
okay. All right. And then also joining us is one of our first members from the West Coast, from Iron City West, and a guy that it's funny that we're recording this tonight because I just received in the mail a T-track module from our Yardmaster from the West Coast, Bob Frine, who was kind enough to build a single module, mailed it cross country to me so that we can include that in the upcoming one of our big favorite shows of the entire year, the Altoona N-scale weekend. So I will be honored to transport Bob's module for the contest that we have each year to raise money for the guy who actually founded it, Mike Phillips, and who unfortunately passed away. But we have this contest. This, I believe, is the third year we've done it in a row where people build single modules, and then the results of that contest help us to raise money and donate it to the SPCA, which was something that was a passion of Mike's, I guess, in addition to N-scale. So we're delighted to have Bob here, who built and mailed a module, and we'll have all the way from the West Coast a module in the T-track contest for us this year at the Altoona N-scale weekend. So it's great to have all you guys here, and I'm looking forward to a lively discussion tonight. So with that, Pat, back to you.
Okay, guys. Hey, we'll get into this. So we did it a little different this time. We actually went out and did a post question of the week and asked people, hey, what would you like to ask Yardmasters, and what are some of the questions that you like to hear? So we're going to read off those questions tonight, and we'll start with George. George, Gary Vollmer asked this question. If you could start your current layout over from scratch, what would you do differently?
I would probably, when I lived in Maine, I had a layout that was a one level, and then it had a helix that went up to a second level. And the levels at the bottom was basically the Boston and Maine from the New Hampshire border to the Maine border. And then the top level was the Portsmouth branch. That had all the industries where I grew up in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. So I would probably do another layout just like that, because this one, the layout I have now is very tightly compact with all the Portsmouth branch and the main run on the layout.
Okay. And George, on your layout now, can you tell us a little bit about that? What's really the main differences on this new layout that you have?
This layout here I have is basically a U-shaped layout with the Rockingham Junction, which is located in Newfields, New Hampshire, which actually the Portsmouth branch comes off of, is in the back side of the layout. And Dover, New Hampshire is in the front side of the layout, the Dover Yard. I can incorporate the Dover gravel train, the Ossipee gravel train on the layout. I can do a lot of the businesses they had in Dover and in Portsmouth on the layout, including a lumber yard, a beverage facility, a Highliner Foods, a fish place where they made fast food fish stuff, things like that.
I think it's also beneficial to point out, I forgot to mention this, but if you're wondering why George doesn't sound like most people from South Carolina, it's because you are originally from New England. Where is it you originally were from? And I'm sure that's why you have such a keen interest in New England railroads. I sorry, I can't remember where did you hail from originally, George?
I grew up in Portsmouth, New Hampshire.
Okay.
Right on the seacoast of New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Brad, I don't know what you're talking about. That's the best Southern accent I've heard in years. What are you talking about?
Yeah. we should mention too, we almost did have somebody with a Southern accent on here. Our good friend Scott Lister, also from South Carolina, but unfortunately Scott had to make a run to their property down on the beach because of, I don't know if there's storm damage or some cleanup or something he's got to do from the Hurricane Aaron that recently, of course it didn't hit directly, thankfully, but the storm surge and high waves from it, I know, caused some headaches for some people down there. So that's what Scott's doing. He was originally scheduled to be part of this with us, but I'm sure we'll have another opportunity to get him on here. But regardless, it's great to have the three guys who were able to make it. So thanks again for being here.
Okay, Phil, we'll ask you the same question. What would you start differently if you could start over again with or if you haven't built one yet, what are some of the plans that you're looking at?
Yeah, so I mean, right now I have kind of a temporary layout just to have some trains running. Basically have a couple T-track modules, and then I've broken them apart, to make the ends. And I've got some track over some temporary structures in the middle. If I were to start over, I would definitely forego using the folding tables and just start with a baseline benchwork structure. We love our basement layouts, and basement typically have a little bit of a sloped floor, so I do have a little bit of a slope going on, but get there eventually.
So Phil, I'm going to disagree with you on this one because I always thought about the opposite. I was like, I think I just want to do T-track if I could do it all over again, because you could just plug and play for if you were going to different shows and stuff and then put it right back. You know what I mean? I think there's a happy medium there. I have a larger module layout right now, but I know what you're saying. Like you almost have more room than T-track unless you can build some yard units to go with it. But it is nice to have that basement empire built that's there. You don't have to worry about it, and then just have some modules on the side. But I know a lot of people that are starting to think about just going to a modular layout with a T-tracks and just build their empire that way. What do you think about that?
So I've been planning this for probably almost a year now. I've gone down the road of multiple different configurations. T-track modules was one of them. I just couldn't get to a point that I would have been happy with it.
Right.
Just getting the more of a natural flow, I guess, to the track lines.
Yeah, that's the one thing that sometimes people like, with the Freemo is that ability to maybe wander through scenery and not have to worry about the double Kato main line coming through if you didn't want to go in that direction, if you wanted to go short line or a smaller line or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Bob, out west, what do you think about this question?
So I do not have an N-scale layout, but I do have a G-scale layout in the yard. And if I was going to redo it, I would probably build a raised planter to put it in instead of having it on ground level or just right above ground level. As you're getting older, it's a lot harder to work on and to put out your trains and stuff. So that's where I would, for this question. But if I was to build an N-scale layout, as a kid, I always wanted a basement empire. And unfortunately, in Southern California, we don't have basements. So I was always stuck with a sheet of plywood or less. But now I've kind of gotten to the point where I actually like doing little small shelf layouts. And so I've built a little 2-foot by 8-inch switching layout that's based on a fictitious brewery. But the one that I really want to do, and I'm kind of planning it out now, it's about an 8-foot by 1 foot. It would be the Southern Pacific Burbank branch about the first 2 miles. And there was so many great opportunities for switching in that. And so that's kind of one of my thoughts that I want to work on in the near future.
Okay, that's something, that micro railroad. You always think when you're putting something together, oh, I need to go from town to town to town. But I've seen people really going with these micro shelf layouts, and it's maybe one or two industries. And to shift the cars and move them, and a lot of people might put an attachment on the shelf, like a little yard attachment, just so you can operate on that, and then take it off when you're done. And the clock's on, and next thing you know, it's an hour and a half if you move two boxcars, to get everything right and to do it, prototypically. So I've seen a push towards those shelf layouts and those micro. I don't want to call them micro layouts, but micro scenes. Like you said, a mile at the most.
Yeah. So mine that I'm actually looking at it here, it sits in my office. It's 24 inches long, 8 inches wide. And then I have a little 2-track fiddle yard that I start the locomotive, or I bring the cars to. And I can sit here for an hour and just switch out a couple of things and have some fun. But it was really fun building something small. And if I really want to watch something go round and round, I can just go out to the yard and put a train out and let it go in circles,
Brad, you see that West Coast bias about the great weather. He wanted to throw that out.
That is not escape. That did not escape me. It was funny on my way home tonight. It just looked like I saw some really weird clouds, and I'm wondering if that's not some of the the fringe of Aaron blowing in. Speaking of weather events, but yeah, I'm sure our weather here in PA is a bit different from what Bob sees out there in California.
Yeah.
So, but Brad, I'll let you wrap this up. I know you have a pretty big basement empire. If you could do something again from scratch, what would you do differently?
Definitely, it would have been to start off with a prototype freelance type of philosophy, which that's what I did end up with. When I first started building my layout, I was going to build the Pensy main line through, one of our favorite areas, the Altoona Crescent out toward Johnstown, Pittsburgh area. I started, in fact, the part of my layout that I actually did start, when I started building it, it was with the intention of starting at the town of Gallitzin, where the main line splits and goes through two different tunnels, the Gallitzin tunnels. But I got so hung up on trying to make that area look exactly like the town of Gallitzin that I was just driving myself nuts and wasting way more time than any human being should. And this would have been shortly before you and I met, Pat.
Right.
It was right before you and I met that I decided I'm going to shift the Pennsylvania main line north. So it comes up what is now the Buffalo line. It goes right through the area where I live, which has always been, that's where I cut my rail fanning teeth with my grandfather back in the 70s when I was only like 3 years old. So I've been watching trains go through this area all my life. So I got to kind of incorporate the best of both worlds, shift the PRR multi-track main line a little bit north of its actual location. And then I basically run it through lines that actually existed. They were not big 4-track main lines, but I kind of extrapolated the Pennsylvania Railroad Broadway, they called it, up into the north a little bit. So it runs through some of the places that I used to like to visit in my younger days, like Driftwood, Keating, Lock Haven, all these places that are near me here in north central PA. So if I had it to do over again, I would definitely start with the idea that it's a prototype freelance. It's based on a prototype that existed. I've moved it forward into modern times because I know a lot of people find modern diesel locomotives boring. I absolutely love them. I guess it's the physicist in me, but the efficiency and power of these new engines it's just off the charts as far as it. So I enjoy painting, modern locomotives in the Pennsylvania 5-stripe Brunswick green or dark green locomotive enamel GGLE paint job. So that's what I would do differently. Instead of trying to match that specific prototype of the Pennsylvania Railroad middle division, I would have started off with the idea of proto freelancing it. So I have a little bit more freedom to build what I want to build. I do model some existing towns with the idea that they may not appear exactly as they do because a different rail line than what actually goes through there in my in the fictional world of my layout. So yeah, I would have gone prototype freelance instead of trying to go strictly by the prototype is what I would do differently.
Okay. Hey, thanks for those questions, Scott. We're going to go to the next one. It's from Heath. I think it's Master. And we'll start with Phil. Phil, he's asking whether or not to weather. What's your thoughts on that?
So for me, I really like the weathering. It does add, that little bit of detail that makes everything look less toyish, I guess, and, more of a replica. It's a little nerve wracking when you spend, so much money on these locomotives and rolling stock and everything to just start painting it and make it look dirty. But I think it looks a lot better.
Hey, George, what do you think about weathering?
I love weathering. I'm not a big graffiti guy. It wasn't big in my era of my layout. A lot of chalk drawings maybe on the side of boxcars, but just basic weathering I find fantastic on freight cars, and I pick them up whenever I can. Light weathering, heavy leathering, rust. I mean, whatever I can find. I do usually weather a locomotive. I'll darken up the grills, the intakes, I'll take a prototype picture and try to make it look like that weathering on that locomotive. If it's got a stain running down the side of it, I'll do that. Little things like that, but I am very pro weathering on cars and locomotives.
George, what are some techniques that you used for your weathering?
I have chalks that I use. Basically, I just chalk it into the grills and chalk it in down the side of the locomotive. I wet it up a little bit just to give it a little darker look. And when you put the dull coat on, it kind of drives it off a little bit and lightens it up. So that in the cars, I'll just basically take some dust and put it on a little bit of water weathering and that type of thing. A little bit of chalk dust. I don't do a lot of painting on them. Most of it's chalk.
So, George, I found that using those military weathering kits seem to work pretty well. Now, what technique are you using with the coat? Are you using a spray? Is that what you're using?
Yeah, when I finish it all, I put a light dull coat on it, on everything I do. It just darkens it down and dampens down the brightness.
Okay, Bob, what do you think about weathering?
So I'm a fan of weathering. Like George, I'm not a fan of graffiti at all. I tend to model like 1940 to 1960 or 65, so I really don't like graffiti. I am a kind of a light to moderate weather. I'm not a big fan of the big heavy duty weathering. There is one thing that I will never ever weather, and it should never be weathered, and that is a Santa Fe war bonnet in any locomotive or anything, because Santa Fe put those things through the wash racks like 5 times a day. So they are all nice and shiny and pristine. So that is, to me, sacrilege to weather a Santa Fe war bonnet. My N scale, I only have about 10% that's weathered, but my G scale, I have about 70% weathered. So, but I am a weathering guy.
So Bob, on the G scale, for a lot of folks that maybe haven't used that, is there some natural weathering when you're running outside so much, or do you have to barn that, or do you ever keep your stuff out at night, or how does that work?
I don't keep stuff out, and when I did, it doesn't really weather that much. So I start out with basically I take the spray gun, the hairbrush, and I just shoot a light coat of like a Mississippi mud to get started, and then add layers on that and do some rust, to paint the wheels, do the trucks. I do like to do my weathering in stages. So I might do, 3-4 cars, let them sit for a few days, a few weeks, even a month, come back and keep adding to it if I don't like it. And, sometimes I'll take them out to the railroad and I'll see what they look like in natural light and add to them.
Okay, Brad, what do you think about weathering?
I agree with Phil in the part about I just pulled this beautiful piece of rolling stock or locomotive out of the box and now I'm going to mar it up. But if you want to accurately model railroads, this is not a clean, pristine business. There's going to be dirt, there's going to be grime, there's going to be rust. So in the quest for realism, yeah, I believe it's for me, and I'm not telling anybody else what to do, but I don't. There's a lot of my cars that aren't weathered. I just haven't had time to get to that part of it yet. And like I mentioned, I don't really like to do it. And like Bob, I don't like graffiti either. It just drives me nuts that I don't want to get into the politics behind it. But if there's graffiti painted on a rail car, it means somebody trespassed on railroad property, put themselves and possibly other people's in danger, makes any railroad. But regardless of all that, I'm not a fan of graffiti either, but it is a part of modern railroading. If you go rail fanning today, you are going to see graffiti on cars. It's inescapable. So I do have graffiti cars too, and I'm gradually weathering some of my stuff, but I just know I'm probably not going to get around to weathering all of my cars, and especially locomotives. Kind of like Bob pointed out with the Santa Fe too, the Penske did do a lot to try to keep their locomotives looking halfway decent in the diesel era. The Penske in the steam era, with all the all the coal and all the cinders, was not a clean. It was there was some grime associated with it. But yeah, some weathering is definitely it's definitely got to be a part of the equation. I just don't like to overdo it.
So the one thing of graffiti that I find acceptable, and everybody's seen it, it's the auto rack with Homer Simpson basically looking like he's sleeping. To me, that's funny, but I don't like any other graffiti.
Yeah, you can't not like Homer Simpson. Right?
Have you guys, anybody seen that technique that someone was sharing a couple weeks ago with the Indian ink for the soot and everything off the engine? Anybody see that? Or am I the only one that took a look at that one?
No, I use India inks a lot because they're easy to dilute with alcohol. And I don't know. I'm sure there are other people who do it, but I kind of have an oddball way of weathering, especially tank cars. If you take 91% isopropyl, and just because you figure a tank car gets weathered because it's dripping or even gushing, whatever, it's hauling down over the side. I take an eyedropper and let that run down over the side, and it actually 91% isopropyl will dissolve paint, and it makes really, without even really having to try hard, it makes some interesting streaks and stuff. You just have to be really careful not to overdo it, or you have a completely stripped area on your car. So
it sounds like that's how that happened, Brad.
Oh, absolutely, I have. Yes. Yep.
Okay, our next question came from a guy named Bob. You guys might know him. He's on tonight. He asked,
Wow.
he asked if you could resurrect any the defunct Class 1 railroad fallen flag, which one would it be and why? And I'll take a stab at this first before I go to Bob and ask him. I'm sure he has a reason why he asked this question. I'm a Lehigh Valley guy. Love Lehigh Valley. Would love to see it back. Just love the paint schemes. Love the railroad, going from New York all the way out to Buffalo through Pennsylvania. And all the in the 40s and 50s, they had the barge cars that would take over to Manhattan and the Long Island, and it was a cool railroad, and that's mine. Bob, what do you think? What would it be a fallen flag that you like to see come back?
I don't know. Do I get 4 or just one?
Just one.
Okay. So just one would be Santa Fe. Technically, I know they're still in existence, but BNSF doesn't exist in my mind because they have such a horrible paint scheme, and I can't like any railroad that has a paint scheme like that. But for me, it would be the original Santa Fe. It was big here in the West, and like the Super Chief and the El Capitan, and those are just classic, railroad cars and trains that were running. So for me, it would be Santa Fe with a Southern Pacific as my second.
Okay, Phil.
You see how he flicked the second?
Yeah, I know. I saw that.
Oh, I'm gonna get number 3 and 4 invited.
I know you will. He's gonna come back around with them. Phil, what do you think?
So I grew up in Northeast Indiana, so I'm used to seeing our wonderful Conrail blue. So I'd have to go with Conrail.
Yeah, you like to see the big blue back, huh?
Absolutely.
I tell you, with all these supposed mergers and possible future mergers, it might be back one day, probably 2040. George, what are you thinking about?
Oh, sorry.
You guys probably know what my answer is going to be: the Boston and Maine Blue, the Blue Dip locomotives, and the McGinnis era GP9s, the Bluebirds. And then I've got to throw the Maine Central in there too. I got to take two. I want the Maine Central back too. I want that interchange of Rigby with both of those two together.
Okay, Brad, how about you?
You probably already know the answer for me, but for me,
that's right.
It would be the PRR for sure. That was and it's weird to say that too, because I mentioned before, my grandfather working for the railroad is what got me interested in railroading from a very early age, but he worked for the New York Central. But I can still remember to this day like it was yesterday, and I was probably I was less than 5 years old. For whatever reason, the main yard in the Williamsport area, which is like 10 miles from where I live, 12 miles, was Newberry Yard. And I was sitting there watching trains with my granddad. I guess he had just gotten off work or something. And into the yard came a PRR DGLE Brunswick Green F unit. I don't even remember if it was an F. I think it was probably an F7, but I don't know. An AB set of them pulled into the yard with the green and the 5-stripe scheme. No idea how it got there because they hadn't been using that for a long time. And this also would have been probably around 1973, which was into the Penn Central era, which there still were Pennsy units around, but they had changed them. They went to a much simpler toward the end. So we had lots of stories. My grandfather and his friends told lots of stories about how maybe the guys down at the Nori paint shop, or maybe even all the way down at Enola, decided that they weren't done painting things in Brunswick green yet, and instead of painting in the Penn Central colors, they did it just I don't know. It might have been a prelude to the heritage units that we're seeing today. No idea, or it might have just been one that was cleaned up, but it looked almost pristine. And from that day, I was hooked on Pennsy with the five pinstripe on DGLE scheme. So that would be the one that I would want to bring back for sure. Is the Pennsylvania Railroad.
Okay, our next question comes from a Yardmaster and our Iron City researcher, Jimmy Brom. He's asking, and I guess this could be anything you guys, go to. It doesn't have to be just a locomotive manufacturer. Just his question was just, what is your favorite manufacturer? And I'll start with Phil on this one.
Well, I'm going to be kind of biased based
That's
on
okay.
The intro. I'm going to say myself. I'm doing a lot of 3D printing. I do some laser work as well. Working on a speedometer that will be a permanent structure instead of a kind of set down tool that we're used to seeing. So it's in the pipeline right now. I'm working on a circuit board for it. So that should be coming out soon. Just browsing through the group, you'll see some other of the designs I've done. But I guess outside of myself, I would have to say Kato. I mean, the stuff that you get from them, whether it's track, rolling stock, locomotives, it's bulletproof. I mean, it just works.
And what are those? I can't remember those, that the shed over the tracks. It's digital. What is it again? That thing that Norfolk Southern started using after the East Palestine accident. But anyway, it's like a big shed structure that goes over the track, and it's got high resolution 3D, high resolution cameras and everything so that they can check over the cars. But Phil is making an N scale version of that. And Phil and I have been chatting, back and forth on Facebook, because I need one that covers 4 tracks. And also I think there was some other cool features that we've kicked back and forth, seeing if Phil could make it happen. He's very good with anything electronic. So Phil, if you hadn't picked yourself as your favorite manufacturer, I was going to pick you. So, but, do you want to
appreciate it?
Do you want to go ahead and give out your website where people can order your stuff and browse your inventory?
Yeah, absolutely. It's designs by pnl.square.site.
Okay. And Phil, you're really pushing the N scale on that, right? That's your main thing is N scale?
Yeah, I'm primarily designing it in N scale. I have had some people inquire about HO and O gauge.
Okay.
So I will be eventually scaling up a little bit for those two at least, but primarily N scale right now.
All right. And George, what do you think on the manufacturer? What's your go-to?
Well, about 95% of my locomotives are Atlas locomotives because I run GP40-2s, GP38-2s, GP7s, and GP9s pretty much on the layout. That's what the Boston and Maine had during my era. So I'm pretty much an Atlas type of guy for locomotives. And as far as cars in the layout, about 95% of those are KD microtrains. All my box cars are KD microtrains. I've been called a microtrain snob before because that's all I have on here, including some custom paint stuff that I do up, some patching that I do up, that type of thing. So a lot of the bulkhead flat cars are microtrains, KD. Cabooses are mostly Atlas, though, on the way out. And I do have some other cars that are Atlas, but most of my stuff is KD microtrains and Atlas.
Okay, Bob, what about yourself?
I'm a big fan of the Kato. I love their locomotives. They're bulletproof. Their track, I mean, you just can't beat it. I like the Microtrains. Microtrains is a great company. I like Scale Trains, but I don't like their distribution model. And I wish they would go through distribution instead of just selling direct. But, Kato and Microtrains are up there. Atlas makes some good products. And I'm going to throw this one in for Brad. NCE.
Okay,
Good man, Rob. Good man.
so I gotta tell a little story real quick. So Brad and I have worked on a project on my layout for some Bachmann, and they're running much better than they had been. But I got to tell this story. I was telling Brad, man, these Bachmann are running so well, and they're doing so great. And thank you so much for doing that. And Brad said, the Bachmann are up here with me. You're running the Atlas. So, but I will say Bachmann is better, is getting better with the latest products they've had in scale. But I'll pass it back over to Brad. I just had to tell that story. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, everybody stole my thunder. I was going to say Phil, but then Phil named himself, so my fallback would have been Kato or NCE, and they were all named. But if I had to pick an overall favorite manufacturer for anything, whether it be a locomotive manufacturer, DCC manufacturer, if you were to pin me down to my number one favorite, it would be NCE. I just absolutely love the way their systems work, the reliability of them, the simplicity of them. The way they do consisting is, in my opinion, absolutely unbeatable. There are some really cool high tech, new age, I call them, command stations available from like TCS and ESU that I do like, but they still haven't really, for me personally, for the way I like to do consisting, they still haven't matched what Jim Scourse was doing at NCE 2 decades ago. Their consisting system for advanced consist is just pure genius. And the way you can either select the consist address, or you can pick the leading loco or the trailing loco into consist. So you don't even have to remember any consist addresses. If you program your locomotives to the cab address, all you got to do is look at the cab address of the lead loco, select that, and you're controlling a whole consist. So to me, that's the huge selling point for any NC. And the thing I like about it is they do that with their big top shelf system, the PH Pro, which is what I use, but they even do it with their starter system, which is the power cab. They both consist the same way. And for the way I like to run consisting, it's just nothing matches it. So yeah, I would have to go with NCE, which I'm sure comes as no surprise to anyone who's listening right now.
So, guys, I think we got time for one more bonus question tonight, and we kind of talked about it. George kind of talked about it a little bit, and that is, when you get micro trains and you get those hooked up with their couplers, it's one of those things where I don't want to say it's taken away from the hobby, but someone like for me, I enjoy purchasing something, put it on the layout, and let's go. Other people like to make a kit or maybe want to scratch build. But what do you guys think? Metal wheels or plastic wheels and coupler brands? What's going on there, George? What do you think you like about those?
Well, I run all plastic wheels on my layout here. I might have 1 or 2 cars with metal wheels. I do like the way they sound on a rail, but it's just too expensive at this point for me to swap out metal wheels on hundreds of cars, so I'm not going to bother. But I enjoy microtrains couplers on all my cars. I'll take the Accumate couplers on cars and I'll actually swap them out to microtrains. I think they hold better. I think they work better, and they don't fall apart as much during the road.
George, when you take those Accumates off, if you would like to recoup some of your money on them, our buddy Todd Treaster just absolutely loves them. So if you have extra Accumates, make sure you post it on Iron City. Makes Todd really happy when people offer those to him.
If he wants all my Accumate I have, he's welcome to them.
And that, FYI, is sarcasm.
And so George, I made up a new word. Brad said a few shows ago. I think it was a statement. It was not a word. It was a statement. Your derailment ratio, even with those plastic wheels, right? You don't have a problem with that, right? I mean, your trains run for hours, I would say.
Yeah, they're fine. I mean, I don't have any problems here at all.
Okay, we'll go to Phil. Phil, what do you think? Plastic wheels, metal wheels, and what couplers do you like using?
So I also have a mix of metal and plastic. I do prefer the metal. I think they roll better. There's less friction between the wheel and the track. But I also like the sound. You know, you go and you listen to an actual train go down the tracks. You hear it clicking across the ties and everything, and kind of get a little bit of realism there with that. I think for the couplers, I have to say microtrains. I mean, they're pretty solid.
Yeah. Okay, Bob, what do you think about all this?
I'm gonna give you a twofold answer here. So in the N scale, when I was part of the East Valley Lines N scale club, we were running code 55 rail. So I had to convert all my pizza cutters to, the smaller wheels. So at that time, metal wheels were just outrageously expensive. So I have all plastic. I may have a couple of cars that have metal wheels, and they're fine. And everything has microtrains couplers. If it doesn't have a microtrains coupler, I don't run it. Now in the G scale, I convert everything to metal wheels because one, it adds weight, they run way better, and I convert all of them to KD couplers in G scale. They stay coupled together, they look good, and so that's what I do in both scales.
Okay, and Brad, we'll let you wrap this up tonight with the think tank. What's your answer for metal wheels, plastic wheels, and coupler brands?
I use a combination of both of them. The main metal wheeled cars that I like are Kato. I don't really care for metal wheels on anything besides a Kato. Microtrains wheel sets with plastic wheels, in my experience, especially if you run longer trains, and I mean I've run 40 car trains on my layout, but if you want to see the king of long trains, it's Todd Treaster. And I always thought that probably metal wheels would roll better for stuff like that, but I have 2% grades here, and the Kato metal wheels do roll quite well. But if you go to Todd's layout, they're all plastic wheels, and he's pulling 100 car trains as a norm, but he's had, I think, 300 car trains on there, and he swears up and down that plastic wheel sets provide less rolling resistance in those long trains. And if you've ever seen his run, it's pretty hard to argue with Todd. I don't know that there's anybody who knows anything more in the entire world about running long trains in N scale than he does. So if I had to choose one or the other, it would be plastic wheels because I run fairly long trains, and Todd's layout is basically water level running. He doesn't have any significant grades. I do on mine. Mine runs through the mountainous areas of north central Pennsylvania. So I have 2% grades, and it's important to have low rolling resistance wheels. So microtrains wheel sets overall, I have to say, are by far the best. And I would say the same thing for their couplers. Microtrains couplers, microtrains plastic wheel sets for me, with Kato a close second with their metal wheel sets. And Kato couplers are good if you're coupling only to Kato cars, but they do not couple well to other couplers like microtrains. It's a fight a lot of times to get a Kato, to couple to microtrains. So obviously most of my cars do have microtrains. So I'm going to go with microtrains, plastic wheels, and microtrains couplers would be my pick.
Okay. Well, guys, hey, thanks so much. Bob, this is your time to give us those two other railroads before we close out.
Before Bob's head explodes, let's give us two other railroads.
Burlington Northern and Western Pacific.
Oh, there you go. The WP. Yeah. Well, guys, hey, we appreciate you.
That's not the WP West Penn, by the way.
No, that's the Western Pacific.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, appreciate you so much. Great job. We're calling this episode the Think Tank because you guys had some great answers tonight. We appreciate your time. And if anybody wants to get a hold of George, Phil, or Bob, you can connect with them on our Iron City Facebook page. These guys are all members. They'd be more than happy to help you. Phil will send me his link tonight, and we'll get that on the notes page so you can grab his link. And George or Bob, do you guys have links of your own for your layouts or anything with the hobby you can share with us? We'll put that on there too. And so with that, we'll be right back with Brad and I's final thoughts on the show this evening. Hey, welcome back, everybody. Hey, Brad, what a good show tonight. Our Yardmasters did a great job. A lot of good questions and answers this evening. And I think we've gave our listeners more information they probably need.
I believe so. I enjoy these Yardmasters segments, though, and it seems like our listeners do too, because we seem to get a lot of good feedback on the Yardmaster segments, and we get a lot of good feedback from including information about people's posts and the questions, as you mentioned earlier tonight. The questions for the Yardmasters tonight came right from people's questions off the website. So it's kind of like an interactive type thing we have going on, which I think people seem to like. But please do keep the feedback coming. If you have any other ideas or if you just like the way things are going, it's all right to let us know that. So, yeah, I enjoyed having those guys on and looking forward to the next time we do a Yardmasters.
And Brad, what I'll be doing on the page, on our Facebook page, is I'll be reaching out again, asking folks, would you like to be a Yardmaster? I know everyone has something to offer, even if you're a new model railroader. You might have something to offer, that techniques, way you're doing things, your planning. We're always trying to get folks on here so they can give us a different opinion or different things that they've worked with. So, yeah, I'm really happy to have those guys on, and I'm sure we'll have them on again, or a mixture of the different Yardmasters as we start building our vault of Yardmasters.
Absolutely.
And so, Brad, let me tell everybody where they can listen to us.
Okay.
They can get us at Apple. They can get us at YouTube, Podbean, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Player FM, Listen Notes, Podchaser, and Boomplay. And we are just happy to have everybody on. Like I said, we are at all these locations, or wherever you get your podcast, we are there. And so you can also reach Brad and I through our Iron City Facebook page, and you can DM us there or just post right on the page, and we'll look you up and get those questions answered or talk to you about different situations. Also, don't forget our big show on the 20th and 21st in Altoona, PA, the Altoona weekend. We're looking forward to seeing everybody there. And Brad and I are working on something. I think we might be going live at the train show. So we're hoping to look at some different things, different options of where to go live. Maybe at the station end porch. We're just kicking a few things around, but make sure you come and see us on the 20th and 21st. Okay, Brad, what else do you have?
Well, there's a lot going. I just wanted to piggyback. There's a lot going on that weekend. The show obviously is one of the coolest N-scale shows probably in the entire world. So, you can come to the Blair County Convention Center and see our T-track layout running, see the contest modules, and We have one all the way from the West Coast this year, which is kind of exciting. That's clear. That definitely the furthest away anybody's ever been who entered our T-Track module contest.
Yeah, that's pretty neat.
Bob Frine mailed his module cross country to me, so I'll be bringing that. So there's the show itself. Then there's the station inn that Pat mentioned. If you want to have real trains in the mix along with the toy trains that we have at the show, at the station inn in Crescent, which is only about 12 miles on US 22 west from Altoona. You can get there in under 15 minutes, and it's just a great time can be had sitting on the station inn's porch in Crescent, Pennsylvania. And then the third big thing that we need to mention is our good friend Todd Treaster, and frequent participant here with us on he's been a special guest, and also he was with us for the segment that we're doing with he and Dave Abel. He's called the Office Car Special. But Todd will be having an open house that weekend up at his place in Burnham, PA. It's near Lewistown. You head up Route 322 or 22. Sorry, head up Route 22, and that'll get you to the Lewistown, Burnham area. Todd will have his fabulous layout open to anybody who wants to go during the weekend of the Altoona N-Scale weekend, which is the 20. Help me out, Pat.
20th and 21st.
21st. Yeah.
That's right.
And I believe
Todd's is open the night before. Yeah, 19th.
Todd will be open on Friday the 19th, and I believe he's open both Saturday and Sunday. He comes to the show on Sunday, so he'll be there Friday night, and he'll be there all day Saturday, and he often goes into the evening. And if you've never seen Todd, if you're an N-scaler or any scale really, but especially an N-scaler, and you've never seen Todd's layout, it's definitely worth a side trip to go see. It's about an hour from Altoona, roughly. So it does involve some driving, but it is more than worth it. Just to see the layout would be worth it, but then you get to see the probably most impressive private N-scale collection anywhere in the world. He has his fantastic collection on display there. And if that's not enough, they also have food that is to die for. They've had homemade meatballs. We've had lasagna one time we went there. We've had kraut dogs, and there's some really good fudge there sometimes. So just a great mix. And Todd and his wife Becky just treat you like your family when you go there. So if anybody needs a few hours to kill on one of the days, that is a great trip to take up to Todd and Becky's place to see the fantastic layout he's got up there.
Brad, should we warn people you can't do both very well when you go into Todd's? You're either going to look at the collection all night, or you're going to look at the layout. You can browse the collection and look at and be on the layout, or you can browse the layout and really deep dig into the collection. But you can't do both. It's overwhelming. It's so much, and Todd is a great host, and I can't wait to go up there again and see everybody.
Yeah, people often get dizzy and lightheaded the first time they see it because you aren't sure which way to look. So
I know a guy that happened to.
Yeah, I'm sure if anybody passes out, Todd will give you mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. So yeah. If you have the time, it's definitely worth a trip to take it up to Todd's place during that weekend as well.
Okay, Brad, can you close us out for the evening with your final thoughts?
Yep, sure can. Thought we had another fun evening with a great group of Yardmasters. And we once again just want to take some time to thank all of our listeners from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you for continuing to listen to what we're providing here, and stay tuned for some exciting things coming up here in the future. The month of September is going to be pretty exciting for the podcast and also for the Iron City group as a whole with the stuff that we've mentioned. And we'll, as long as we have people who enjoy listening, Pat and I will continue to enjoy bringing this content to you. So thanks once again, and we'll see you next time on the Iron City Roundhouse Report.
All right, rail fans, that's all the steam we've got for this edition of the Iron City Roundhouse Report. Until next time, keep those gauges green, your couplers connected, and may your layouts always run smoothly. Happy railroading.